There is a place within every human being that the world cannot touch. It is quiet, eternal, and unbroken. No storm can destroy it, no failure can stain it, no loss can silence it. Most people spend their lives searching for that place outside themselves, and in that endless search, they lose what was always near. Peace is not found in what you reach, but in what you remember. The soul already knows the way home. It only waits for you to listen again. There comes a moment in life when all that once seemed stable begins to crumble. The things you trusted fade, the people you leaned on disappear, and even your own strength feels like sand running through your fingers. That is the valley, not a punishment but a passage. It is in that emptiness that truth begins to whisper. You realize that life has never been about control, but about surrender. The soul does not grow through comfort. It grows through awareness, and awareness only awakens when everything superficial falls away. There is a rhythm to divine restoration. It begins in silence when the mind finally stops arguing with reality. The heart softens, the ego lowers its weapons, and for the first time in years, you stop trying to fix yourself and begin to feel yourself. That is when healing begins. Not because life changes, but because your perception does. You start seeing that every wound was a lesson, every loss a purification, every delay a hidden protection. Nothing was wasted. Every tear watered the ground where new strength would one day grow. When the soul finds its center again, abundance starts flowing like breath. Not as money or fame, but as clarity. You stop asking for more and begin to realize how much has always been here. The mind learns to rest, and rest becomes revelation. You begin to understand that the journey was never about arriving somewhere. It was about becoming someone, the one who trusts, the one who listens, the one who follows the invisible voice that says, "Keep walking." There are days when the weight of existence feels unbearable. You wake up tired of pretending to be strong. You sit in silence and wonder if anyone truly sees you. But something inside you, small yet steady, whispers that there is more. It is the seed of faith buried under years of fear. It survives every storm because it was planted by eternity itself. When you turn your attention to that seed, everything changes. You begin to sense that the universe is not against you, it is inviting you. Every closed door, every silence, every unanswered prayer was a call to look deeper, not farther. The mind often tries to survive through control, but the soul thrives through trust. You were never meant to understand everything. You were meant to walk with grace through what you don't. There is a love guiding you even in confusion. There is order even in chaos. There is purpose even in pain. And when you finally let go, when you stop trying to force life into your plans, you begin to see that the shepherd has been leading you all along. Not through perfection, but through process. The path you feared was not a detour, it was direction. Stillness is not emptiness. It is the sound of the divine rearranging your inner world. When you learn to be still, you begin to hear what has always been speaking. Peace does not shout. It hums quietly in the background of your being, waiting to be noticed. The moment you listen, life starts aligning. People come, doors open, and coincidences stop being coincidences. You realize that the external world was always an echo of your inner state. The mind you heal becomes the world you live in. To walk through darkness without losing your center is the highest form of strength. Strength is not the absence of pain. It is the ability to keep your heart open while it hurts. Most people close when life breaks them, but healing begins when you decide not to. When you choose to remain gentle in a world that taught you to harden. When you choose to forgive instead of curse. When you choose to believe that something sacred still exists, even in the ruins. That choice, simple, silent, pure, is what transforms suffering into growth, and that growth becomes peace. It does not come suddenly. It unfolds like dawn. One morning, you wake up and realize that you are not carrying the same weight anymore. The past still exists, but it no longer defines you. The memories no longer burn. They teach. You begin to move differently, speak differently, think differently. Gratitude starts blooming where bitterness once grew. That is abundance, the soul overflowing because it has been emptied of illusions. The secret of inner prosperity is not in accumulation, but in alignment. When your heart and your mind walk together, even little becomes enough. When your intentions are pure, heaven cooperates with you. That is why the most powerful prayer is not asking for more, but saying thank you for what is. Gratitude does not deny pain. It transforms it. It turns the ordinary into sacred ground. And when you live in that awareness, nothing is wasted. Not the laughter, not the heartbreak, not even the silence. There will always be valleys, but they will not destroy you. They will reveal you. You will meet yourself there, not the version built by fear, but the one shaped by grace. The one that understands that healing is not becoming invincible, but becoming real. You will see that your deepest wounds were never meant to break you, but to bring you closer to the truth, that love is stronger than loss, and faith is greater than sight. You may not know where the path leads, but you are not walking alone. Every moment of uncertainty hides divine precision. Every delay hides preparation. What you call waiting, heaven calls forming. And in that formation, your heart learns what logic never could, that surrender is not defeat, it is mastery. The shepherd is not somewhere above the clouds. He's the voice of peace within your chaos. You do not need to chase him. You only need to be quiet enough to feel him. He was there when you were falling apart. He was there when you blamed yourself. He is there now, reminding you that it is never too late to begin again. Restoration is not an event. It is a rhythm. Every sunrise that touches your skin is proof that heaven has not given up on you. If this message has reached something deep within you, let it become a declaration. Write it in the comments as a seed of faith. My soul is remembering the way home. And if you believe that every heart can heal when it returns to truth, stay close to this space. Subscribe and walk this path with us. Because your journey is not ending, it's beginning again. In peace, in awareness, in divine abundance. There comes a moment when the soul becomes tired of noise. The noise of ambition, the noise of comparison, the endless search to prove its worth. The world teaches that to be valuable you must win. You must be seen, you must never stop running. But the soul knows another rhythm, a slower, deeper one. The soul whispers that meaning is not in speed, but in depth. That peace is not found when you have everything, but when you no longer need to prove anything. When the noise fades, you begin to notice the silence that has always surrounded you. It is not an empty silence. It is the presence of something sacred. You can feel it even when words disappear. That stillness is where healing begins. It's the place where the soul no longer resists life, where it finally accepts that the past cannot be changed and the future cannot be controlled. The only power you truly have is to be fully here, now. The moment you return to the present, the burden begins to lift. The weight you've carried for years starts to lose meaning because it was never meant to define you. You are not what happened to you. You are not what you lost. You are the awareness that survived it. The fact that you are still here means that grace never left. You have walked through fire, and even if you came out with scars, those scars are proof of strength, not shame. The world looks at brokenness as weakness, but heaven calls it preparation. Every crack in your heart made space for more light to enter. Every tear carved a deeper capacity for compassion. You were being stretched to carry something greater, not suffering, but wisdom. There is no shortcut to peace. You cannot fake it. You cannot buy it. You can only grow into it. And growth requires pain, because pain is how the false self dies. The version of you built on fear, on the approval of others, on the illusion of control. It has to fall apart for truth to rise. That is why life sometimes breaks you. Not to destroy you, but to remove what you are not. The more you resist change, the more it hurts. But when you finally stop fighting and say, I am ready, life begins to rebuild you from the inside out. Peace is not perfection. It is trust. Trust that every season has a reason, that every ending hides a beginning, that every silence is still an answer. You will not always understand it while you're in it. Sometimes clarity only comes when you look back and realize that what you thought was rejection was actually redirection. What you called loss was guidance. What you called failure was formation. Nothing was wasted. Not 1 second of it. There are days when hope feels like a fragile thread, when you pray and it seems heaven has gone quiet. But even silence has meaning. Sometimes God is not ignoring you. He is teaching you to hear differently. He is showing you that his voice is not always thunder. Sometimes it's breath. The answers you seek are not far away. They live in the stillness you avoid. You don't need another miracle. You need awareness. The miracle is already happening. You are still here, still learning, still being shaped by invisible hands that refuse to let you fall. Every time you choose to get up again, heaven celebrates. Every time you forgive instead of hate, every time you breathe instead of break, something in eternity moves closer to you. The universe was not made to crush you. It was made to refine you. Life bends those who carry purpose because it is the only way to make them unbreakable. Do not despise your valley. The valley is where the roots grow. The mountain is only for the view, but the valley is where the soul learns intimacy. When everything else is stripped away, you finally meet what is eternal within you. You learn that peace was never the absence of the valley, but the presence of love within it. The same love that carried you when you had no strength of your own. Healing does not mean the past disappears. It means the past no longer rules. The memories stop bleeding. The old fears lose their voice. You begin to look back, not with regret, but with reverence. For even your pain was sacred ground. It broke you open so that humility could enter. It emptied you so that grace could fill you. It softened you so that you could finally understand that gentleness is stronger than pride. When the mind returns to peace, life begins to bloom in places you thought were dead. Opportunities appear where you had given up. People enter your path with the exact words you needed to hear. That is not luck. It is alignment. When you start walking in truth, everything that belongs to you begins to recognize you. You stop chasing and things begin to come. Not because you're lucky, but because you're ready. Abundance is not the result of effort, but of awareness. It is not something you achieve, it is something you remember. You are made of divine intelligence. You are connected to a source that never runs dry. The only thing that blocks the flow is fear. The constant thought that you are not enough, that you will never have enough, that something outside you will complete you. But fear is just forgetfulness. The moment you remember who you are, fear dissolves. It cannot coexist with truth. Sometimes peace doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly in the middle of an ordinary day. You look around and realize that you are no longer waiting for something to happen. You are simply grateful to exist. That is abundance. That is wealth. To be fully alive in the moment and realize that nothing is missing. You are here. You are breathing, and everything sacred is breathing with you. The more you awaken, the less you need. You stop measuring your worth by achievements. You stop begging the world to see your value. You start walking differently, with quiet strength. You no longer chase light. You become it. The heart that once lived in survival begins to create. The mind that once feared lack begins to overflow with ideas, compassion, clarity. Life does not get easier, but it gets truer. And in truth, there is peace. When you walk in awareness, you start to see beauty in everything, even in what hurts. Pain stops being punishment and becomes participation in something greater. You see the divine pattern unfolding in places you never noticed before. You see that the shepherd was never outside of you, guiding you from afar, but inside, leading from within. You were never abandoned. You were being reintroduced to yourself. The journey is not about changing who you are, but remembering who you've always been beneath the noise. Pure consciousness, sacred breath, divine reflection. The storms of life are not trying to destroy you. They are trying to bring you back home. They strip away illusions until only truth remains. And when truth becomes your home, you are unshakable. Everything you've walked through has been preparation for what's next. Every prayer that seemed unanswered was planting something invisible inside you: patience, wisdom, compassion. Life was not delaying you, it was developing you. And now that you see it, gratitude begins to rise naturally. Gratitude that you are still here. Gratitude that you can still love. Gratitude that nothing, not even your mistakes, could separate you from purpose. If this message reached your soul, let it become a declaration of faith. Write it in the comments so it echoes through your own life. I am walking in peace, even in the valley. And if you feel that this awakening has already begun, stay close to this voice. Subscribe and walk with those who are learning, just like you, to live from the inside out, to live from the peace that nothing can take away. Because the mind heals when it remembers who leads it, and the heart overflows when it stops searching for what it already carries. That is the secret of inner abundance, not a promise but a truth that lives inside you, waiting to be remembered. There is a moment when life stops being a plan and becomes a revelation. It doesn't happen suddenly. It happens quietly, in the middle of an ordinary day, when you are tired of carrying too much. When you realize that the fight was never against the world, but against the parts of yourself that refused to rest. That's when you begin to awaken. You begin to see that peace was never hiding. It was waiting for space inside you. You don't find peace. You make room for it. You don't create strength. You uncover it. The soul doesn't become whole because it wins. It becomes whole because it surrenders. For years, you may have believed that peace would come when you finally reach your goal, when people understand you, when life becomes easier. But peace doesn't live there. It lives in the quiet courage of those who have lost everything they thought they needed and discovered that they still have everything that matters. The ones who have nothing left to prove are the ones who finally learn to live. They walk slower, breathe deeper, speak softer. They stop rushing toward tomorrow and begin to notice that the sacred has always been right here. The mind loves control. It measures, plans, and fears what it cannot predict. But the soul moves differently. It trusts the unseen. It knows that what looks like loss can become the doorway to grace. When you stop forcing outcomes and begin trusting the process, something miraculous happens. Clarity replaces confusion. Life begins to lead instead of being pushed. You no longer chase meaning. You start walking in it. That is when abundance begins, not as money or status, but as alignment. A state where everything in you stops fighting itself. Sometimes healing doesn't feel like light. It feels like breaking. It feels like being stripped of the stories you told yourself just to survive. But as those stories fall, truth enters. Pain always precedes clarity because pain removes what was false. The heart cracks so that it can feel again. The mind bends so that it can see differently. Every storm has a reason, not to destroy, but to awaken. You were never meant to stay the same. Life keeps reshaping you so that you can hold more of what is real. When peace finally comes, it doesn't arrive with noise or spectacle. It slips in softly. One morning you wake up and realize that the thoughts that used to exhaust you have lost their power. You start to see beauty in things you once ignored. You begin to feel grateful not only for the good days, but even for the hard ones, because they taught you endurance. Gratitude changes everything. It doesn't erase the pain, but it transforms the meaning of it. You stop asking why and start saying thank you. You stop begging for more and start blessing what is. That's when your cup begins to overflow. Not because you have everything, but because you finally understand that you are enough. Every soul has a rhythm, a natural harmony with life, but most forget how to listen. The world distracts you with its endless noise. More things to buy, more goals to chase, more identities to wear. But when you quiet the noise, even for a moment, you hear it again. That steady, sacred pulse inside your chest that whispers, I am still here. That whisper is not just your heart beating. It's eternity reminding you that you belong. You are not a mistake. You were never forgotten. You are part of a design so vast, it could only have been made in love. If you have ever wondered why you went through so much pain, it is because purpose needs depth to root itself. A shallow soul cannot hold divine weight. Every disappointment carved space inside you so that joy could one day fit. Every time life took something away, it was making room for what could truly stay. You thought you were losing, but you were being prepared. You were not being broken. You were being shaped into someone who could carry light without arrogance, compassion without weakness, wisdom without pride. The greatest miracle is not escaping pain, but learning how to shine through it. The most powerful people are not the ones who never fall, but the ones who fall, break, weep, and then rise again with love still alive in their hearts. Strength is not hardness. It is softness that refused to die. And when you live from that place, everything changes. You begin to treat others with gentleness. You begin to forgive faster, love deeper, and see beauty where others see burden. The healed soul becomes a light in a world full of noise. There is no greater wealth than peace. There is no greater success than waking up with a calm heart. There is no greater abundance than knowing that even if everything disappears, your soul will remain whole. When the mind remembers this truth, it no longer bows to fear. It moves with grace. It trusts again. That is the real freedom, not freedom from pain, but freedom from despair. The kind of peace that makes no sense to the world because it does not depend on the world. When the soul reaches that state, life begins to follow a different rhythm. You stop fighting for validation and start walking in quiet confidence. You stop explaining your worth and start embodying it. You begin to live not to prove, but to serve. Not to possess, but to share. The ego shrinks and the spirit expands. You start recognizing that everything and everyone has something sacred inside them. That even the ones who hurt you were teachers. That even the storms had mercy hidden within them. And suddenly, you understand abundance. It's not the gold you collect, but the peace you give. It's not the house you build, but the home your presence creates. It's not the voice that is heard, but the heart that is felt. The world tells you to chase everything. Heaven whispers to let go. Because when you let go, life flows. When you stop demanding, blessings start to find you. The shepherd never left. He was simply waiting for you to stop running. There is no need to fear the valley anymore. What you once called emptiness is now the classroom of grace. The darkness that once frightened you has become sacred ground. You no longer walk blind, you walk aware. The same pain that once silenced you has now become your message. You can finally look at your story and see not tragedy, but transformation. The soul that once broke is now strong enough to carry others through their storms. If this message found your heart today, let it take root. Don't let it pass as just another video or another word. Let it become your declaration. Write it below, make it your prayer. My heart is learning to rest. And if you know that this piece was meant for you, stay here. Subscribe, walk with us, and keep this voice close. Not because you need more words, but because you deserve reminders that you are loved, that you are guided, that even when life bends you, heaven never lets you break, because the shepherd is still leading you home. And the path, no matter how dark, is still sacred beneath your feet. There comes a time when everything you once chased begins to lose its meaning. The applause fades, the goals blur, and even success starts to sound empty. You realize that what you were searching for was never out there. It was inside you, buried under years of noise and fear. The soul reaches that point not to give up, but to begin again. True awakening never starts in victory. It starts in surrender. It begins when you finally whisper, enough. Enough pretending, enough running, enough trying to be someone else. That whisper becomes the doorway to peace. Peace is not the absence of storms. It is learning to walk through them without losing your song. The world breaks everyone, but not everyone learns how to heal. Some let the wounds define them, others let them teach them. You can spend your whole life trying to erase the pain, or you can allow it to become the foundation of your new strength. The past cannot be undone, but it can be transformed. Every memory can be rewritten through forgiveness. Every scar can become a window for light. You don't need to forget what happened. You need to stop letting it hold you hostage. When you begin to heal, life doesn't suddenly become easier, but it becomes real. You stop expecting perfection and start recognizing grace in the imperfect. You begin to find beauty in small things. The sound of rain, a slow breath, a quiet morning. The heart that once needed grand gestures begins to appreciate simplicity. You learn that the most extraordinary miracles are often disguised as ordinary moments. And the more aware you become, the more sacred everything feels. Even pain becomes prayer. Even silence becomes presence. The soul reaches peace when it accepts that life was never supposed to be constant joy. The light needs shadow, just as faith needs questions. The path of awakening is not straight. It bends, breaks, and rebuilds. But with every bend, something inside you softens. The walls of pride fall, the armor of fear cracks, and love begins to enter. Not the fragile love that depends on conditions, but the divine kind, the one that remains, even when everything else disappears. That is the love that heals the mind. It restores the heart and brings the soul home. You will know that you've begun to awaken when you no longer react to life the way you used to. The same situations come, but they no longer take your peace. You still feel, you still care, but you no longer drown. You stop searching for control and start trusting the rhythm. You realize that the path is not punishing you, it is perfecting you. The moments that once felt unbearable are now teaching you how to love deeper, how to listen longer, how to walk lighter. What once made you bitter now makes you wise. What once made you cry now makes you compassionate. Nothing was in vain. Everything had purpose. There is a kind of strength that doesn't shout. It's the strength of a quiet heart that has seen the storm and still believes in sunrise. It's the peace that stands unshaken, not because life got easier, but because you learned how to bend without breaking. That strength doesn't come from knowledge. It comes from surrender. When you stop resisting what is, the divine can move freely through you. That's when you begin to feel guided again. Life stops being random. The right people appear, the right moments align, and what you once called coincidence becomes confirmation. You realize that you were never wandering, you were being led. The shepherd is not a distant presence watching from the clouds. The shepherd is awareness itself, breathing within you, walking beside you, waiting in your silence. He was there in your darkest nights, not outside rescuing you, but inside sustaining you. Every step you took through pain was proof that you were not alone. The hand that carried you through the valley is still carrying you now. You may not always feel it, but peace doesn't depend on feeling. It depends on faith. And faith is not blind. Faith sees beyond what eyes can see. When the soul returns to trust, abundance begins to flow again. Not the abundance of possessions, but the abundance of purpose. You stop needing validation because you know who you are. You stop begging for love because you've become love. You stop fearing the future because you've met the one who holds it. And that awareness changes everything. You wake up every day not asking, "What will I gain?" but "How can I serve?" That is true prosperity, a heart that overflows because it no longer measures, a mind that creates because it is no longer trapped in fear, a spirit that walks freely because it remembers where it came from. When you reach that awareness, gratitude becomes your native language. You begin to thank even for the things you once hated. You thank the storm for showing you what peace feels like. You thank the loss for revealing what cannot be lost. You thank the waiting for teaching you patience. Gratitude becomes prayer, and prayer becomes breath. You realize that abundance is not something you ask for, it's something you awaken. The world outside is just a mirror. When your inner cup overflows, everything around you begins to bloom. The soul that knows peace becomes unshakable. Not because it avoids pain, but because it understands it. Not because it knows all answers, but because it trusts the unknown. That is the essence of faith, walking through darkness without needing proof that light still exists. The shepherd doesn't promise that you will never face storms. He promises that you will never face them alone. And when you understand that, the valley is no longer a threat. It becomes a passage. The shadow no longer terrifies. It becomes a teacher. You begin to see the divine in everything, even in what once made you afraid. There is a beauty that only those who have been broken can see. It is the beauty of survival, the grace of transformation. The world calls it resilience. Heaven calls it redemption. You are not the person who entered the fire. You are the one who walked out glowing. You carry light now, not the kind that blinds, but the kind that warms. The kind that tells others you can heal too. You can rise too. You can find peace too. That is your purpose, not to be perfect, but to be a living proof that wholeness is possible. If this message touched your heart, let it become more than words. Let it become your declaration today. Write it below so heaven hears it through your courage. I am at peace with the path that led me here. And if you believe that this awakening was meant for you, stay close. Subscribe and walk with us. Because the journey doesn't end when you find peace. It begins there. Every day is a new step. Every breath is another chance to return home. The soul has found its shepherd. The storm has served its purpose. And now, the mind that once feared scarcity knows abundance, not as something to chase, but as something it already is. You were never lost. You were being guided. You were never abandoned. You were being refined. The shepherd was always within you. And now that you have remembered, you will never be the same again.